Steve, you're back from the Stone Ages, like many other Center County region residents.
That's true. That's true. We weren't as far in the Stone Ages as some, but yes, we have electricity again.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm happy that you have electricity. I'm even happier that you're here, hanging out with me.
There you go. Oh, that's
Okay,
nice.
yeah,
That's great.
that's great. Um, this is the Stuff Summer Says podcast with
Steve,
Steve. This is also probably one of my favorite episodes of the year to do. Bigger episodes of the year to do. I think the whole impetus or the major reason for our friendship is our shared love of guessing what time Penn State will have football
we're
games in the
hoping,
fall, or
right?
hoping.
Yeah.
Yes. So we will spend much of today's podcast talking about that. I have a young guy this week, based on multiple experiences recently. So we'll
Can't
go.
wait.
We'll chat about that. I think the other thing that's kind of going on that we did want to start with, if you will, is the lesson that I think we're all collectively learning is that there are Penn Staters with a lot more free money or disposable income than myself as I look at the myriad of signs from Beaver Stadium, some of which are going for, let's see, what's the most expensive one? I think is 1,600 here. Yeah, it looks like about 1,600, which ain't cheap. If you want to get in on the auction,
What sign is that?
it looks like, okay, this one objectively worth that much is a like one of the little posts that show you where you are in the stadium. Has like you are here, and then it has like all the concession maps and how to get to the seats, different sections. That's it as of tonight, which is Monday, 16 or $1,675 on eBay. And 177 people have viewed it in the last 24 hours. So seems like it might be headed in a high direction. What's the most you would spend on one of these?
I'm just now looking. I'm looking like WGU, like the sign that says for the
Yeah,
section. And it's like
301 or 305.
1,300 bucks. Yeah. Um, I don't know that I'd spend that much. The Penn State letters are like $200 a piece. No, all of this is outside. I mean, you know me, in terms of the you could do something for charity with whatever else. Although the Beaver Stadium map sign is kind of cool, but it's not worth 16. I don't know. I maybe 1,500 bucks. Got to give you a number. I'll say. So I'm not buying anything on this list. Clearly. Um, yeah.
We're in agreement that and I think they already went. Maybe it will here, I'll hit see all and see if I can see it. We're in agreement that the letters T A T E and E N N are not as valuable as the P and the S, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I struggle with spending more than like $300 on any of these, and that's the get-in price for most of these auctions. I feel like I do feel like, as you pointed out earlier, they did a nice job of picking stuff to sell. You can do the press box sign, which is kind of cool. There's a couple restroom signs, some elevator signs. Let's see what else.
And there's more to come. Like this
Yeah,
isn't all of it. They're doing a
yeah.
good job of spreading it out and making it work. So they've created supply and demand. They've done a good job with that.
I think this certainly would all look very cool. Now, like, okay, this one is massive. I know this sign. I can see this sign. It is the main concourse, and it has two arrows at the end of it. It says WA, WB, or WF through
Yeah, yeah.
WJ. It's going for $560 right now. Let's see if the dimensions are listed on this one. You can buy it, or you can pay over time on this item. It is 96 inches by 39 inches. That is a massive piece of art that you are sticking in your house. All of that is to say, I still kind of want to maybe. Well, I'm keeping my eyes open. That's what I'm saying here.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're local. Like all this stuff is as is, where is, right? So it's people have to pick this up or figure out how to get it shipped. That would be interesting. Like there's got to be like all these people aren't buying this in Center County, right? So there's
no,
got to be some now second sub level business of whomever that's shipping this stuff, which is always interesting too. So
what would you buy off this list? Like what's the one you would hunt down?
I wouldn't pay the $1,600. The stadium map one's pretty cool, right? Like that's the sections. I don't think we were in WG. I forget where we started on that side. But yeah, of what's there now, that's the interesting stuff. I mean, like the press box concession room policy that you got to be working press to eat, like or whatever it says. That would be worth like $300, $350 in my world. But I'm glad they're making the money, so good for them. Because somebody's not going to ask me for NIL money or something else because they're going to have it here, hopefully. So good for them.
I think I would go with the drum major flip one is very cool. I think that would be which is one of the plaques outside of the stadium more so than anything else. I think that one is very cool.
Why is that? Why? Just curious. Like the outside of the stadium still remains, so I guess they're going to make a new one of these, or why would this?
Well, because there's so many like throughout the stadium. There's those markers,
or maybe it's just beat up.
And I don't know if I think the Nittanyville one is still there by the student section entrance. I distinctly remember recently walking by that one. But I wonder.
Maybe this is displaced by construction.
Yeah, I think that one was just kind of in the way of construction. The one that I kind of would want would be the white and gray wristbands, which is just a little bit of a Nittanyville joke, just because you needed wristbands to do Nittanyville. But the fan code of conduct would look great in a bathroom, and that one's going for just over $1,000 right now.
Well, maybe that's where someone's planning on putting
it. That's where I would plan on putting it. All right. Yeah, these are all good options. I would still like to get my hand on a bleacher. So somebody knows anything about how to get a bleacher.
They were selling those. At the.
And I wasn't there
in person. It was like $10 or $100 a number or something like that, right?
Yeah. So if there's any left over,
I think if you call surplus, I bet you there's leftovers still.
Okay. I haven't been up to line surplus in a while. That's it. That is a hidden gem of Penn State. Legitimately, we used to go in there and buy a little bit of everything. You could pretty much find a little bit of everything. I think I have a computer from there actually.
I have a coat. I have a ping pong. We had a ping pong table that lasted for a few years, like that came out of a common. So yeah, we found gems there through the years.
That'd be a good place to buy a ping pong table because I wouldn't want to buy one new, but that was a good find.
I was lucky. You got lucked into it. So
yeah, that's the other thing. You gotta get there's the element of luck going into the line surplus. Okay. Anything else about the stadium sale?
No, let's see when we get lucky with picking TV times.
Okay. Yes, this is as I mentioned at the top of the show, one of the episodes that I get the most excited for every year. Because this is one of the things that we love to do the most. This is what I feel that we are the best at, or not, maybe not the best at, but I feel we are most well equipped at knowing and know how to do. Okay. I think a couple of things. Let's set the table here, and then we can also go into. I think we can kind of do this week by week. Does that work for you? Perfect. Great.
That's good.
Okay. So let's set the table. Let's go back and look at last year. I want to discuss that. Felt that this was important in my investigative research as I meticulously sat down on the couch last night and typed all of these out. The networks broke down this way. CBS had 3, Fox had 3, BTN had 3, NBC had 2, and then Peacock had 1. There were 2 sets of back-to-back games in that Penn State appeared on BTN on back-to-back weekends early in the non-conference schedule, and then they appeared on CBS in back-to-back weekends. I believe that was the
USC and somebody else.
No, it was Minnesota and Purdue. They were back to back there later in the fall. So that is kind of the lay of the land of networks last year, and I think that was much more balanced than it was comparatively to the previous year, which was really heavy on Fox. Penn State did not appear on FS1 last year. I think that's also important to bring up. And then those would be the only networks we didn't include. Of course, we didn't include TNT or ESPN because those are for the playoffs.
Right.
So those would be the networks. The times were 4 games were at noon, 5 games were at 3:30, 2 games were at 7:30, and 1 was at 8. That 8 o'clock one being the Peacock game, which was also streamed in IMAX, which we had Eric on to chat about. Okay, those are the lay of the lands. I think that's helpful information, just kind of, because I think that's probably about where Penn State will be this year in terms of performance, because that's warranted based on what networks they end up on. So I think that's important. I want to start here because I think there's actually, no, we will save that conversation. So without further ado, age before beauty, for the Nevada game, Mr. Samsel, what is your pick?
Oh, well, it's week 1. They're playing Nevada at home. I said 3:30 BTN.
Okay. We agree on time. We do not agree on network. I had them on FS1, which is why I alluded to that, because I just thought
they're going to get FS1 in one of these 3 weeks, first 3 weeks of the season, because none of these 3 games should even be broadcast, let alone played. So if they're going to end up on Fox Sports 1 on one of them.
He said it, not me. So I Jesus.
Sorry, they're just horrible games.
We are through 1 game in the non-conference schedule, and Steve is like, they might as well put them on the PCN network or whatever. The
PCN has broadcast more competitive games than some of these will be.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard it here first. Steve is super excited for the 2025 Penn State football season.
Well, 3:30, so we're either both going to be... So that's good.
Okay, I think 3:30 makes a lot of sense there just for the Western time zone team. I think I picked FS1. I went FS1 because the Mountain West has a deal with Fox, and I just thought maybe they would throw them a bone there. The next game is FIU, which was a game that I completely forgot about is on the schedule this year until I was looking at. I just forgot. I just completely forgot. Excited for Penn State to play the Panthers. I hope that they wear their Miami Vice uniforms. If you've seen those,
I didn't know they had those.
They took an homage last season to Miami Vice. Okay, I had this game at noon, and I had this game at BTN.
So do I.
Perfect. Look at that.
We're either both going to be wrong, or we're both going to be. I mean, again, it's. There's not a lot going on that week, but it's just not a game that people are going to want to see badly.
Yeah, so let's look at that. Like notable games that week, really in the round of Big
at Oklahoma.
10. Yeah, Michigan's at Oklahoma, so that'll go to ESPN. Boston College at Michigan State, that might be on there. Oklahoma State at Oregon, that probably gets picked up by one of CBS or whatever.
Iowa State.
That'll be on Fox in some form or fashion. So we were talking about this earlier, and we kind of see this in particular in week 3 as we kind of move along here. It's a really rough non-conference. Like there's not a lot of interesting games early on in the Big Ten season, not just for Penn State, in the Big Ten in general. And I think week 3 really typifies that. Penn State plays Villanova that weekend, but that's also the most interesting game is Wisconsin at Alabama. And then I think it looks like there's Minnesota at Cal and Oregon at Northwestern, and everything else is Big Ten versus mostly lower tier FBS or even some FCS schools. So
that said, what happened to Penn State's game against Villanova?
This was one of the ones I struggled with. I really did struggle with this because of how boring and sad this game was. I believe last time, I can't remember. I don't think this game was on Peacock, but it might have been in Peacock. It was either the Delaware game.
Delaware, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was Delaware. So I don't think it was on Peacock. I think it was on BTN. I have it on BTN at 3:30, and I don't know why. That's just very optimistic. Okay.
So do I, but I could see it on FS1. Like in the world of really horrible things, I could see it on like a 6 o'clock kick or 7:30 kick on BTN. I mean, I don't know where their windows fall at that time of year. That'd be awful. But yeah, I just did 3:30 BTN because I didn't want to think about 7:30 BTN
Well,
or
so
6 o'clock FS1.
I
You
had thought
know,
about that, but my thought was it's a in-state opponent. You're not going to get noon because you're going to get them. You're going to get the people from like the Philly area that are coming from Villanova, which isn't bad, that very many of them, but like you're going to get more families. So you don't want to do noon because it's a little bit harder to get people up there. I think 3:30 you lobby for just because it's in the middle of the day, much easier. Traffic can make it a day trip for most people. Um,
but you
I
just mixed a couple things there that I don't know, and we talk about this, and I think
right.
you're right in terms of spending time and being equipped to discuss it. Like, who's the we in your world in those things, right? Like, you don't want in state. Like the network that are picking don't care about in state, except for they think people are going to be in the stands,
Well,
right?
but you gotta wonder that like for that slate, like okay, like if you're gonna use if you're Pat Kraft and you say, hey, you're gonna relegate us to BTN there, can we at least have this time slot, or can we
Well,
lobby for
we
this
need
time?
to find somebody to find out if they even have that leeway to do that.
Right.
Like when they pick whatever, but we'll get to that I guess on weekend picks coming up
Yeah.
here too. So we're in agreement pretty
Okay.
much for the most part.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're gonna be in agreement on the next one, and that's the first, as you would put it, probably real game of the season. Um, but I think this is an important conversation to have because I think this is where the pick process and the draft process that the networks have comes into play, and I think this is a good conversation into it. Now in week, technically I think week 5, but it's the
Yep.
fourth Penn State game of the season. Penn State will play Oregon, rematch of the Big Ten championship game. Now, without, but also probably spoiling a further pick down the line, let's like kind of go through the draft here a little bit. So we assume that Fox has the first 3 picks of the weekends for college football.
Right. Which means they get to pick the weekend, and then later they will pick the game of the
Right.
weekend that they want.
Right.
Yep.
So I think it's pretty obvious what are the first 2 picks in the quote unquote draft. It's always number one's always going to be the Ohio State Michigan game. Just
Yep.
especially after last year and the gangbuster ratings that it did, and the consistently gangbusters rating that it always does. I think the next obvious one actually comes back in week 1, and that's when Texas goes to Ohio State, which is, I believe, a semifinal matchup, a repeat of the semifinals from last year. But also, you have Texas, one of the largest brands in the South, maybe the number 2 biggest brand in the South, depending on who you ask, versus Ohio State. I would say the number 1 brand above the Mason-Dixon line in terms of college football.
Yep.
And then I think it's up for debate on what that third Fox pick is, and I think Penn State is involved in that pick regardless.
Yes. Penn State is the pick regardless.
Right.
Penn State is the pick regardless. It's either Ohio State, Penn State, or Oregon, Penn State.
And I just can't not see that pick going to the Penn State Ohio State game with everything that's on the line there. How Fox has consistently picked that game. How there's not really the issue of time zone travel for the athletes, if we want to factor that in. Although we kind of saw that point is a little bit moot after the UCLA game being at noon last year. I can't. I like kind of sat down and like was like, what are the reasons that Fox would pick this game over the Ohio State game? And I can't think of one because I just don't think that Oregon is going to outdraw Ohio State in terms of with Penn State, assuming that Penn State's like the secondary team there in either of those scenarios. Not that,
Yeah.
I think Penn State's probably going to outdraw Oregon TV wise.
Yeah, Penn State at Ohio State is getting a better number than
Right.
Oregon at Penn State, even if it is the rematch of the Big Ten championship game. It just is. And their options, the options on either weekend, if those 2 games aren't the noon game, aren't super. But if you're Purdue, if you are Fox and you're looking at this weekend, the 27th, if you don't pick Oregon, Penn State, if you don't take that as one of your first 3, what's still left at this weekend is USC, what's going to be a decent Illinois team, and Indiana at Iowa, and Rutgers. I mean, you got 3 options at noon that you could plausibly sell, because Rutgers and Minnesota are going to be undefeated that early in the season unless they spit the bit. So So I'll throw my cards on the table first and say Oregon at Penn State, September 27th. Not at noon, not on Fox for everybody who's worried about that. But it depends on where the networks fall, right? Because this is the game of the weekend.
So
this is the fourth biggest game of the year. So it's either 3:30 or 7:30 on whichever network lucks into it.
And I assume it's NBC. So I have 7:30 NBC.
And I would go with that too, because NBC, honestly, for all they've invested in stuff, if this game's on the board when it's time to pick, they're taking it because they had a not so great schedule the first couple of years,
right?
Like realistically,
and
this would be their first big game.
And I think ultimately, like, also they miss a lot of that. Like I think, or they got screwed a lot of that. And there's not a lot. Like when you look at the schedule this year, actually not that much attractive out there for the West Coast based teams, or maybe some of those in middle of the season kind of weekends that Fox is going to snatch up first. Like the second games on the tiers aren't as attractive as the first games. And I think you have to pick this game. And I think I will caveat it with, if CBS has the second pick, then it's going to go CBS. But I just can't, I everything I know, everything I've seen doesn't make me believe, or makes me believe that the next pick after the third Fox pick is NBC, and then it's CBS as the following weekend.
Okay. So we both have 7:30 NBC.
Okay.
Week 6, I think this plays into the one we just talked about too.
Okay.
Right? Like, I think it is. Because I think they do. I think it's 3:30 in CBS when they go to UCLA.
We this is bad this year. We're
going to get blown up. It's still going to. None of this shit's going to happen.
We are gonna get blown up. Yep, that's exactly what I have, and I think it's a lot of the same reasons. Let's see. I think plausibly the Michigan Wisconsin game is your big noon game, depending on what other stuff is out there. I think Michigan State, Nebraska. I am interested in Nebraska this season in terms of, like, if Dylan Raiola is as good as they say he is, and they are much better. Like, I think they are a bigger wild card factor, and I think the other school that's a bigger wild card factor is Illinois. But they're at Purdue that weekend, and I don't know that that's that necessarily that interesting of the game for Fox to pick if they take that weekend. So I think the CBS game, I don't know that that's the quote unquote fifth pick, but I just can't imagine that game not being at 3:30 at work.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Okay, so October 11th, 7 weeks into the season.
Okay. All right, hold on. Let me write this down. I'm going to make sure that I record.
Yeah, make sure you get them right, because I'm actually I had my notes and then I'm blowing away and putting what I picked down.
Okay.
And they're my picks or your picks at this point, so whatever.
Okay. All right, so this is homecoming, Northwestern game.
Only home game in October.
Only home game in October. Hadn't thought about that. But it is.
Again, but does it matter? Like, do the networks are making the picks of weekends? Do they care that it's the only home Penn State weekend in October? Somewhere, I'm sure, on a production system or whoever's job it is to collate this information, I'm sure it's their only home game in November. They've got a note there about it. But in terms of weight, it's like it's ratings that matter, right? Like, Michigan's at USC that weekend, which is a good game.
Good game.
Iowa's at Wisconsin, which is a plausibly good game, and maybe a big noon kind of like, we're going to spread the wealth and see something else out there. Ohio State's at Illinois. Illinois is supposed to be halfway decent this year, right? UCLA's at Michigan State. Like, this isn't a horrible weekend in terms of...
Even Indiana at Oregon is actually a pretty interesting game.
Could be, right. Like, depending on what
if Indiana is
right.
I'm not as bullish on Indiana as I was last season, so to speak. So I have the traditional homecoming time of noon. And I think for the third year in a row, Penn State ends up on Peacock.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I can. Oh, but there's probably going to be one somewhere, right? Because they're just going to give them one.
Seems that Penn State is one of the schools that, and I haven't sat down and done the math, and probably could do that. But it seems like Penn State is one of the schools, for particularly its Comcast stronghold in the eastern part of the state, that probably makes sense in terms of shareholder value to put them on Peacock.
Yeah, and I think I had all these BTN games early on. I don't think they're getting another one at this point in my world.
Well,
right? Like, if I had all three of them to start,
they have to get one conference game on there at some point, usually.
To Peacock, you mean?
To BTN. to BTN.
Right. No, and I gave them 3 on the first part of my schedule. So if I'm going to play with my logic, they're not going there. And it's bigger than a Fox Sports 1 game. But is it bigger than a Fox Sports 1 game? Yeah, I'm going to make Fox Sports 1. I don't know why.
What time?
Why noon. I think that makes sense. I don't think it would fall that to Fox Sports 1, but I've now made that bet of having too many BTN games early in the schedule, so I'm stuck.
Yeah, I have to look at your spreadsheet. We are kind of on a weird trend of homecoming not being at noon.
Yeah, it's fell off a little bit in the past couple of years.
That's not been the case as much recently, but I don't know. There's just something right about Penn State playing. Let me look this up. Game theme. You can do this, by the way, on stuffsummersays.com. So homecoming last year, 7:30, 3:30. Yeah, the last homecoming at noon was the infamous 20-18 overtime Illinois game in 2021. The last noon game. So it's been a minute, but it just something feels right about Penn State playing at noon, and I'm going to go with Peacock just because. The other thought I had here was, so I have struggled with the Villanova game, as I kind of thought the Villanova game, and then I was like, man, maybe they're not going to do that. Like, might as well try to get like a little bit better of a game, which it seems like they did a little bit last year. And not that I think Northwestern is going to be good next year, but I think it's a little bit more of an appealing game. Okay. Next weekend
is October 18th, Penn State at Iowa. Would we write for a nighttime game? But the complicating factor, I think, in my world is USC's at Notre Dame that weekend.
So that's 7:30.
That's going to be the 7:30 game on NBC. So I think 3:30 on NBC.
Ooh,
because sometimes they double up.
They do that.
So
and
I'm
that
going to
would
do
be a
3:30
good leading
NBC.
game to that.
Yep.
That's a good point. I had not considered that. I went with 12 p.m. on Fox.
Okay, and that wouldn't shock me. It's a good weekend. What else is there? Nebraska's at Minnesota. Washington's at Michigan. They may or may not be good. Ohio State's at Wisconsin. But I'll stick with 3:30 NBC.
Yeah, and I think that's a good to be different. I think that is a good. I feel like I won a little chalk this year, and I appreciate you going. Okay, now we're in week 10, but week 9, or I don't even know at this point of the season.
November 1st.
We are all in agreement, I think, on this.
Penn State at Ohio State, noon, Fox.
Yep.
But who cares? It's in Columbus, right? Like, that's the thing. It's a noon game in Columbus. It's not like a game you're losing at home.
Right.
People to complain about.
Right.
So, yes.
But I will say, as I went through this exercise, just kind of like trying to pick out some games, for as much as Penn State fans didn't like Fox last year, because I think Penn State fans were the angriest.
Poor
at Fox.
Ohio State.
Ohio State fans were quite angry at Fox. I think they're going to be even angrier at Ohio State.
Yeah, because their team's too good. Like, that's the problem. Yeah. People watch and they care.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We return back home. Penn State will play the Hoosiers against Kurt Cignetti's Hoosiers. I couldn't finagle it to not get 12 p.m. against or on FS1 again.
I'll say Fox, but I'll take it noon as well. Okay. I mean, Oregon's at Iowa that weekend, which is maybe there, but it's a noon game. Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, and that makes sense. So there's your back-to-back of Fox, back-to-back in the middle of the season.
I mean, it's going to require Indiana to be good, and they may not be good enough for that to happen.
And that was kind of what I didn't know about. And it also feels like, I don't know, maybe it could be, because, sometimes they send Gus, Joel, and Jenny to a 4 p.m. game. I was
just going to say it could be one of those 4 p.m. things on Fox. Well, I don't know where we're at with baseball that weekend either.
That's true, because that might be the last weekend. Well, no, the World Series should be over by then, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Chugging along here. 3 more to do. Penn State heads back up to East Lansing to play outside at East Lansing, I guess would be the best way to say this. I kind of just thought 3:30 CBS, and it just because I don't think I had one CBS pick, and I don't know. I feel like Penn State or CBS really liked Penn State last year.
That's what I do. This is not good. We're gonna get so smoked.
Here's the problem.
Either that or the networks are going to be totally wrong.
Here's the problem, right? Because we award half points for each one is worth 1 point. It's a half point if you get the time right, and a half point if you get the network
Gonna have
right.
to, yeah. Because
we are gonna be close. Like we have enough differences in networks but the times we just. And remember, you get a quarter point if you pick NBC, and it ends up on Peacock. Don't forget.
okay.
The rare.
This is getting to be like a spring football scoring system.
Correct. I'm afraid to ask the next one because I think we know where we're at with it. I have this is a Nebraska game. There was not that much interesting. Go ahead. What do you have?
No, Michigan State's at Iowa. Oh, you don't think? Well, there's nothing in the East. That's true.
That's what I struggle with on this.
Northwestern's home against Minnesota. Nobody cares.
And I think, but they are at Wrigley. I think at that game.
Rutgers is at Ohio State. Nobody cares. Could be Michigan State at Iowa. Could be the noon game on Fox. Illinois and Wisconsin. They could both be good. No, I'm going to go. We had NBC already, though, right? It was just once.
We had NBC. That's late in the season. You had NBC twice. 7:30.
Oh, and it is November 22nd. 7:30, November 22nd might be late.
Yeah,
but they have them all season long. That thing doesn't matter anymore because I'll go 7:30 NBC.
Steve going with the
Hail
Mary there.
Well, it's getting to Penn State home. Their home night. Well, they had Oregon at night too. We'll do 7:30 NBC. All right. I'll be wrong. But
I went with. I just can't not see that game on
Fox.
It just feels it feels right on that network. Okay. All right.
Nebraska. I guess they couldn't stink.
Yeah. All right.
Final weekend of the season.
That leaves us with the last game of the year. I have BTN, and I have 3:30 because just death and taxes. 3:30 BTN on the last game of the season, pretty much every year. It feels like. You agree?
That's a lot of BTN games in my world. They're not going to have 2 FS1 games. That would be my 4th BTN game. Who else? They're not taking. What does NBC have that day? UCLA, USC's at home. Northwestern's at Illinois. Those are both more appealing. I want it to be noon just to get it over with. So I'm going to say noon FS1. Because it's Rutgers and it's the 2. Just get it over.
All right. How do you feel about your picks?
I think if we aren't close, then the people that are doing it from real life are just wrong.
Correct. That's the correct.
How's that? How's that?
Look, like I think I kind of feel like I felt like this season was a little bit easier in some ways to pick than last year, because last year it was like, well, there's all these other little factors, and we didn't really understand the contract as well. I feel like now that we kind of understand the contract better.
Yeah, and I think the FS1 that I threw in there is great. Like, I think they're going to be better than being on FS1 in most cases. Like, if they get one game on FS1 this season, I think that's going to be the end, the most, right? Just because they're going to be good.
Right.
And they're going to end up in places, and this conference schedule isn't as strong in some other places.
Right.
And we'll know, I mean, we're doing this now because the upfronts are coming up.
Right.
We'll know Oregon before the season starts. And we'll know 2 others before the season. Like, we'll know the season opener, Oregon, and
you usually get the first 3 at the end of May, and then we get a few sprinkled in. I think it was last year. The weird one was Purdue had it was July 4th, and we knew half of Purdue's schedule in terms of time because of the weird networks they were playing on. But I do think there's good plausibility to believe that the NBC up front will have information about the Penn State Oregon game. I think that would be and I misspoke earlier. That NBC game, Ohio State at Oregon, was their that was the
game
other big one.
Before that. Right.
Yeah. The other thing is, does Penn State get a bone thrown to them in terms of announcing the whiteout? Remember, last year's big drama was we went pretty late into the summer without knowing what the whiteout was going to be. I mean, I think the whiteout
if it's
feels
Oregon at 3:30
really
or 7:30,
yeah.
If it's either one of those, it's the whiteout. I mean, it's malpractice on their part not to have it happen if it's 3:30 or 7:30.
Yeah, the schedule feels super obvious this year. The way last year, it could have been UCLA, could have been Ohio State. It could have been a couple of different teams, and then of course it was Washington, which was also a could have been. This year, that Nebraska game's kind of sort of too late there on the 22nd. And I don't think Nebraska necessarily like deserves it. You're avenging a Big Ten championship loss to Oregon. It's also just the first, I think maybe one of the first times Oregon's come to Beaver Stadium. To look that up actually.
I mean, that'll be the thing, right? That's the whole contrast of, they've got the reflective uniforms and 18 different combinations of uniforms. Penn State's just plain white. We'll just show them what a whiteout is. I mean, it's even if for some reason it ends up noon, it'd be wrong not to do it that game. But if it ends up as 3:30 or 7:30, that's what it's going to be.
1964, the last time Penn State and Oregon played in Beaver
So
Stadium.
neither one of us saw that game.
No. Rip Engel was the coach.
Not many of the people listening to the podcast saw that game.
No. For that, they've only played 5 times. That feels surprisingly small for Oregon Penn State. Okay, I feel good about my picks, and I look forward to our friendly competition again this year. Seeing how we do.
I think there was a little bit of wisdom there somewhere.
Yeah,
between us.
I think we did a good job. Okay, we filled 25 minutes of this episode, so that was exactly what I wanted out of that. And that's why you listen to this podcast. This week's old guy, young guy. I was
brought to you by the young guy who did what?
So I was at, where was I? I was at Lowe's the other day. I was at Lowe's, and I was picking out
with the dogs.
No,
okay.
Was picking out a new weed whacker and leaf blower. I decided that it was time to switch to electric. Was going and because all of my power tools are Craftsman, I decided I was just going to kind of keep with the same ecosystem, right? I'm minding my own time, looking at the boxes, and out of nowhere, who appears but a man trying to sell me leaf gutter cover filter things.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, he's like, "Do you own your house?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Do you own your house? Do you need what are your gutters like?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just trying to buy a leaf blower. Like, I don't need this." And then it got me thinking, like, we have been on a recent rash of roof salesmen.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of those because we just had a pretty big storm like 2 weeks before your big storm. Wonder if you're in for it. We also have a lot of electric people trying to sell us solar because there's a lot of tax credits down here in Maryland. I want to know, what is the Steve Samsel method to engaging and disarming salesmen?
Oh, I really thought this was going to be something different when you asked about salesmen. So that's interesting. Like we had our neighborhood folks on Facebook get up in arms in a little Facebook group about like the Anderson window people coming door to door, like to check on your windows and do a survey, and they can do an energy audit and how old are your windows and whatever else, right? And I'm always like, hey, glad you're out here. House, it's only a few years old, like, so don't need it. Hope it's going all right, whatever else. We had a guy 6-8 months ago walking around in a Noah load the boat rainstorm, like going door to door, like, and came to the door, and I'm like, oh, God bless you, right? And I'm like, so I gave him an umbrella, like he's like, really? Do you need that? I'm like, just go, like, you don't need to bring it back. So I get it. It's their gig. I'm sure it's probably not their first selected gig.
Right.
Maybe some people are good at it. Leaf filter guy at Lowe's, I haven't run into that person. So I try to be nice and try to be like, I'm not interested in that right now. Why are you mean? Or like,
no,
how do you?
Okay. I have been accused of being suckered into a free quote, and and then have had someone else in this household chase that person away by saying he's actually not interested if we don't need that. She's a little bit more blunt about it. I am not, and it's fine. It's one of the many reasons I love her. That is to say, I can be a little bit of a pushover. The one that is my favorite, though, that I have really started to screw with, and I know lying is bad, you shouldn't lie, but when we go to Target, there are people from AT&T trying to sell us new cell phone plans, and they're like, who's your provider for phone? And I'm like, my work pays for it. My work does not pay for it, but I just say my work pays for it.
Easier,
and we're done. They're like, well, can't beat that. Yep. No, you can't.
Fair. I thought this was going to be like auto salesman, and we were going to get into like Carvana versus seeing a person, and I just didn't know.
No.
Like, okay. Because I think Samantha's still scarred. We went to buy, God, one of my trucks. Maybe she was 10, and we went to the dealership, and we're talking, and the guy's like, "Here's the price," and I'm like, "Okay, great, thanks, never mind." And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I just told you what I could afford, right? Like literally told you. And what you told me was that it was more than that, right? And so I knew there was room to play, but I'm sorry, he's not the guy, right? Like, so I'm like,
Right.
so we're just gonna go, like, no big deal, no fault. It's not personal, it's not whatever. And I probably didn't say it quite that calmly. I mean, I wasn't mean about it, but
Yeah.
and she's like, we're leaving. I'm like, look, can't make. And he's like, but you don't want. And then we went back like 2 days later, and like, because she's like, we're leaving. I thought you wanted this truck. I'm like, it'll still be there in 2 days, right? Like, but I don't know. I don't mind the negotiation, sort of. I mean, Susan likes to negotiate more than me, and my uncle sold cars for 40 years when you were really negotiating. But I like if I tell you this is what I can afford, and you tell me this is the number,
Yeah,
then and they aren't within that range, then I'm done. Like I don't need
very
to like.
logical.
At the same time, I don't like the whole Carvana. Here's the whole thing. I do want to be able to like, okay, whatever.
Now
So,
we are bad examples because we bought a car in the right after the end of COVID, or well, not the end, but the tail end of like 2021, when there were no used cars and it was impossible to buy a new used car. And we spent like a week trying to find the cheapest CRV that we could possibly find. And we found it. And we're like, we're basically not even, we're going to try to negotiate with you, sir, but we're not going to get anywhere because you know, and I know that's the cheapest CRV in the entire state of Maryland, maybe even the
right,
entire Eastern Seaboard. Like,
right.
yeah. No.
And that's the thing with numbers being out there. That's kind of taking that piece away from it
Yeah.
in some ways. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sort of okay with that because I don't know if I've always won or lost. I don't feel like I've lost big in times, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No.
I remember the work pays for it. I like that one.
Yeah, that's the go-to. Don't tell the roof people that you have a friend that does it, because then they'll ask who it is, and it's like, oh, I have a friend. And then you gotta like there.
And you got to make up the friend's name too.
Yeah, I tried that one. So don't do that one. Yeah, that's about it.
Very cool. Good advice for spring, especially as people look into roofs and electricity coming up. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, podcast is off next week because I'm going to the Dominican.
You have sunscreen?
I have sunscreen. Need lots of it.
That's
Pasty white thighs.
what I'm saying.
I made sure that my swim trunks have patterns on them for all the haters that Steve gets.
There we go. That's exactly.
So excited to do that. Be off next week. You have something that I need to post. It's very good. Just read it. Need to post that. We will have this in blog format as well, so that people can search and find it.
Nice.
We have that. Let's see. It's not like we're not going away or anything like that. And then we kind of get into June, and we can have a little more fun into June. But what's next for the next couple weeks or so? We'll be back. I think we have a guest lined up for that first Monday when we're back, or I'm back, so I'm excited about that. Yeah. Anything else blog wise?
Nope.
Okay.
No, safe travels, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. The name of that blog is stuffsummersays.com. On that blog, there's a section called With
Steve.
5 stars, thumbs up, all of that. Really appreciate that. Like and subscribe as well. Please do that. Let's see. We've got emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve says.
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Perfect. You can find me on the internet at Stuff Summer Says. You can find Steve
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.